Tim, so excited to have you on here. I've been a fan of yours since Jump Attack back in the day as a kid that grew up in Chicago, being obsessed with Jordan and everything that he did to get the competitive edge. And your two books are probably in my top 5 favorite books I've ever read. So I appreciate you for taking the time to invest in writing those for everyone so we could get sort of an insight on what happens in the minds of great athletes. And I was actually curious because in your books, you talk a lot about Jordan and Kobe and the amazing athletes that you've helped with that pursuit of winning. But what's helped you to develop that same win at all costs mindset? Because I think a lot of times it's hard for people to relate to Jordan and Kobe because we see them and we sort of just assume that they've always been great. But I know that you've developed that same mindset in yourself. Can you talk us through how some steps you've gone through to develop that very same mindset?
Well, you know what? I say there's situations that happen to us throughout our lives. Even when we're young, as we get older in our teenage years, when we go, our next steps, and how you handle those situations and who handles those situations for you. Are you allowed to deal with those situations on your own? Are your parents totally dealing with those situations? Is your siblings? Are your friends? Are they handling all of it, or are they like, okay, here, listen, I'm going to give you some guidance here, and now you have to figure out what the next step is in order to get through this. So I was blessed to have both my parents were around for a very long time, and yeah, they assisted me, but they also said, hey, listen, some of this stuff you got to figure out on your own, because if we are handling everything for you, you're never going to build what we call an adversity tolerance. You're never going to build a level of that where adversity is going to hit. And we've set examples for you. You've seen how we've done it. And now you kind of have to be able to handle these situations on your own. Now, we've got no problem assisting you and giving you the information that you need, but having the ability at an early age to be able to figure things out and maneuver and to make mistakes and to see the wins and deal with losses is how I develop my mindset.
I absolutely love that. I think that's so true. And I think now we're seeing a culture of a lot of parents that want to be helicopter parents and do everything for their kids. And I think we're seeing less and less of that mindset that you talk about in winning. One of my favorite stories is about how you brought Jordan on as a client. And I know you wrote letters to every player on the Bulls except Jordan, but he was the one that you landed. And I've seen thousands of people that have unbelievable talent and potential and skills, but what they lacked was the ability to overcome fear and really take the leap to actually just ask the question to work with the best. So when you were younger and you're getting ready to have that goal of working with top tier athletes, what was going through your mind as you were thinking of how to attract the attention of them and how to sort of overcome that fear that a lot of people have of just taking that first step and asking?
Well, so you know what? I never had fear. So, to me, fear propels you. So my fear was, what if I didn't do this? Well, what if I didn't take this opportunity? What if I didn't take this chance? It wasn't the fear of, well, what happens if I take this chance and I can't produce? No, that's never doubt. To me, there's a huge difference between fear and doubt. Fear is something that propels you. And you talked about, what pushed you over the edge. Fear is what you look over that edge and you say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to take this leap. And if it's not fearful, all right, that leap is not big enough. So doubt is something that we create ourselves. So I never had any doubt in my abilities because I constantly worked on my abilities. Through college, I had all the education through the books. I had all that, but I didn't have all the practical stuff. I didn't actually have the hands-on experience. So what did I do? I took a job at a local health club, with a master's degree, making $3.35 an hour. But being able to do that allowed me to really work on my craft, work with individuals. I mean, I worked with everybody from recreational athletes to people that just wanted to lose weight, for mothers that had just, were wanting to get back into shape after pregnancy, for all types of individuals. And back then there was no social media. Your social media was your results. That was your social media. And you can't filter those results. You weren't able to filter those results. So I was like, okay, in order to get my name out there, to get my reputation out, what do you got to do? You got to deliver results, not for yourself. You got to deliver results for other individuals. So I started every client that I had, I put in a lot of extra time, effort. I monitored everything they did from a training aspect, from a nutrition aspect, how they lived their lives and everything. Cause I was like, that's my advertising. And once I saw those individuals and we would set rules with them, and there was like, anybody that's been in the personal training space knows there are different types of trainers out there. There are trainers out there that are more like therapists that come in and people work out with them so they can share what's going on in their lives, what's going on in their day. It's more of a therapy role. I'm like, I'm not that person. I literally have 45 minutes to an hour with you, and I have to deliver those results. I don't care what's going on, what's going on outside of this thing. You need to be able to block that out. You need to be able to handle that adversity. And I need you totally focused for the next things here, because this is what you hired me to do. So
I love that.
And the more time you're talking, listen, in between exercises, in between reps, in between sets, whatever you want to do, you want to chat. But when your time is back up for the next movement, we got to go. So you build your reputation as an individual, and you have to conduct yourself that way with all your clients. You have to be authentic to who you are. And there was other trainers that took the psychological approach where, they were more of the coddling type, and they were just as busy as I was. So there was enough rule for everything. But at some point, somebody's going to look at that individual and say, man, you've been working out with that trainer for 6 months, a year, and nothing's changed. And my thing was like, get these individuals results as quickly as they possibly can, as they can, make them independent. So they don't have to depend on you. So you get a lot of individuals now, they build dependencies. They want you coming back over and over and over again. I'm always like, let's teach you as many things as you need to know to get the results you can do, so you can be independent. And then we can come back and do a little tune up afterwards. So then I can monitor. So then I can get on to the next client, and the next client. So being able to get those results with a different type of population over and over again allowed me to really understand my craft. So when I had the opportunity to work with a professional athlete, not only did I have the knowledge base, but I also had the experience. Is it going to be the exact same experience? No, it's going to be different. But at least I started to build my foundation, not only with the education part, but also with the practical part.
I love that approach. Did you ever sit down and write a list of your ideal clients that you wanted at the time? Or was it just like you woke up one day, you're like, hey, I'm going to try this and send some letters to the Bulls players?
I was just, it was like, listen, when you look at professional athletes, me being a collegiate basketball player, I had an understanding of the basketball game too. So my knowledge was not only in the athletic training, the performance, nutrition, but also, I played the game. So I understood it. Listen, I played football as a recreational thing. I played baseball, not a whole lot of hockey. But when I was growing up, you had your 4 sports. You had your baseball, you had your football, you had your basketball, and you had your hockey. That was pretty much it. That was pretty much it. So I chose basketball, and I'm like, all right, this is, at least I have a knowledge base in it. I did my thesis on training basketball players. So I was like, let me go ahead and send these letters on. And I took the same approach I did with when I graduated from college. I said, let's not send a letter to Michael, because, he's the best. I'm sure they have him on a specialized program. They know they're not going to let anybody else touch him. But if I can go ahead and be fortunate enough to work with another individual, then, at some point, maybe MJ will see the results I got with this individual and say, hey, I'm interested. And I learned very quickly that the most obsessive individuals, the individuals that want to get better, are always looking for that competitive edge. When you're young, you don't think that way. But as you get older, you look at your business, you look at what you do. The individuals that are on the top are always the ones that show up. They're always looking for more knowledge. They're always looking for ways to get better. They're the ones that are asking, hey, what can I do to get get to the next level because they don't raise the bar. There is no bar for them. They're constantly, what's next? What's next? How can I do it? Because they get that taste of winning, and they know in order to get that taste again, that something has to get better. Something has to evolve. Something has to change. So as talented as Mike was, he recognized, hey, there is something more out there. And he's the only one that got the letter, gave it to the team physician and the athletic trainer at that time and said, hey, find out what this guy's about.
I love that story. I could listen to that 1,000 times. Most of our listeners are owning martial arts schools or fitness studios. So a lot of them are working and coaching young kids and teenagers. And I know that one of the constant struggles is getting young people to grasp the concept of being relentless with their mindset, especially with so many distractions out there in the form of sports and video games and social media. So what advice would you give our listeners when they're trying to coach up the next generation on having that winning mindset?
Well, here's the thing. There's always a reason. If you see a kid in a certain situation, you see others developing. If you dig deep down enough, you have to have that conversation with that individual and say, hey, what are your priorities? I would say, it says, ask the individuals. All right. What do you want to give up? And what are you willing to give up? All right. And if those lists don't match, then until those lists matches, there's always a reason for your success. There's always a reason for your failure. Listen, some athletes, you might not be as athletically gifted as the other individual, but the key is to push yourself and get the maximum out of you. Be the best athlete. Be the best player that you could possibly be. And figure out what you do better than anybody else and enhance that skill. If you're training for, basketball, football, baseball, whatever, what skill set and what mindset can you bring to your organization, to your team that makes you invaluable to those individuals? And it could be simply as you're the best player you're the person in practice that makes everybody else better. That holds them accountable. And everybody knows it. You're the one that knows the playbook better than anybody else. Or you might be the best shooter, might be the best defender. You may be the best place kicker. Find something that you do and get obsessed with it and continue to progress at what everybody wants to do is, instead of looking for consistency in their growth, they look for that aha moment. And all the great athletes and even the youth athletes have to understand the only way those aha moments happen is by repeating the fundamentals, doing the basic things over and over and over again. When we were, it's funny, everybody back in the day, you saw MJ, you saw Kobe, you saw, nowadays you see individuals like Steph Curry and so forth. If you ever watched them in a practice, all right, they spend 95% of that practice working on the fundamentals over and over and over again. And the fundamentals allow them to do the aha moments. It's not the other way around. So just when you're thinking things get boring, well, that's when actually the growth starts to happen. I have this story that, I've shared with individuals quite a bit. For every single practice as a professional athlete, not in college, not in high school, Michael Jordan started almost every practice with a chest pass. The most fundamental principle of basketball. The most fundamental thing. And all other guys were like, the greatest player ever, our best player on our team, the best player in the league. And they're like, well, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for us. So now everybody started to do it. And Michael always said, he goes, if everything breaks down, if I can't shoot, if I can't dribble, if I can't do this, he goes, if I know I have my fundamentals, if I have my fundamental pass, I have my fundamental dribble, I know I can regain everything else. But it goes, if my fundamentals start to rust, that means my structure is starting to rust physically and mentally. And if that starts to happen, then not only is my skill set going to be at a disadvantage, it's going to put my team at a disadvantage.
I think that's such good advice for everyone that's listening. And I love the question, what are you willing to give up to win?
Yeah.
That is unbelievable. And I don't think I've ever thought of it that way. And I could even see that doing that with our team here at the company and be like, hey, to get to the next level, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up?
Everybody thinks it's about the addition. It's about the subtraction. What are you willing to give up? Are you willing to give up your free time? Are you willing to give up social media? Are you willing to give up hanging out with your friends? Are you willing to stay for that extra practice time? And not only are you willing to do that, if you're a young athlete, you probably have to have parents that come in that bring you back and forth. Are they willing? If they see that you're willing to do that dedication, that they'll be more involved in. And the important thing is with parents is, are you pushing the kids because this was your dream and you weren't able to achieve it, and you want to live vicariously through them, or is this something that the kid genuinely wants to do?
Sure. Yeah, I think that makes a huge difference.
Huge.
And I know besides training world-class athletes, you also work with a lot of high-level CEOs. So I'm curious, when you're working with some of these CEOs, what are some of the most common hurdles that they need your help with in getting past?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles that when we deal with CEOs of the companies, it's dealing with the truth. You ask yourself, it's everybody looks at honesty from everybody else. Well, are you being honest with yourself? Are you being honest with yourself? And what I mean by honest with yourself, where you are from a business stance, where you are from a business standpoint, where you are from a health standpoint, where you are from a personal standpoint, because all that stuff affects the end result. When we deal with baseball players who all of a sudden they go into a hitting slump. Well, you've been hitting a baseball since you've been 3 years old. You didn't forget all of a sudden how to hit a baseball. Usually something outside the realm is affecting your performance. So when you talk to CEOs, I talk to them the same way I talk to a professional athlete. Like, all right, if you're not performing at the highest level, yeah, we're going to look at burnout. We're going to look at different stages of where your engagement with your employees, and we'll look at all the numbers. But let's start with the honesty of yourself. All right, what's going on outside of your business, and how it's affecting your business and you as an individual and your ability to perform at the highest level. Because if you're not performing at the highest level, then, your team is not going to perform at the highest level. People, I always have this thing. I'm not letting you off the hook, because if I left you off the hook, it's too easy. Too many times we let people off the hook because it's easy.
Sure.
No. So it's dealing with the honesty, and people, everyone tells you they want you to be honest until it's time to be honest.
Yeah, I think self-awareness is key to becoming a great leader. And I think you talk about a lot with friends versus allies in your book. And I think a lot of times CEOs maybe don't have the right allies around them. They have all the people telling them what they want to hear. And then I think that dilutes the self-awareness. And sort of continuing on that path with allies versus friends, I know with a lot of the people that we coach on the business side that are small business owners, as they start to get more successful, they get the people that leech off to them, or the energy vampires, as I call it. And I'm sure you've seen this probably at a way grander level with athletes and their entourages and everything. But in your experience, what's the best way to help them go about finding their perfect group of allies, and also getting them to have the conversation with those energy vampires and leeches that it's like, hey, you're not growing with me, so I need to leave you on the outside?
Yeah, you just, like I said, be honest with them, be the truth. So as more success you get, your circle should actually get smaller, not bigger.
Sure.
You're going to trust very few individuals, but the individuals you trust are not going to let you down. And you can only create so much energy each day. All right. And you have to decide who you want to put that. Obviously, you put the energy into yourself, and you put the energy into other individuals. You have to know who's worthy of your energy. and who is not worthy of the energy. One of the things I do with my professional athletes and even with the CEOs, I declutter. I look at who's on their thing, and I was like, okay, what does this person do? What does this person do? What does this person do? And if you can't literally give me an answer of what this person does, and I'm like, they got to go.
Yep.
And it's not, it is going to be a hard conversation, but it's going to make your life even harder if you don't have that conversation. I'll share another story with you. When I was dealing with an athlete, I said, okay, hey, I need to know everybody that's working with you. So he brought all these people. I said, well, what is this person? This person. So that person is in charge of washing my car. So what does this other person do? This person is in charge of picking up my dry cleaning. I said, what does this other person? He's in charge of putting gas in my car. And I said, stop right there. I said, why can't the person that gasses the car pick up the dry cleaning and wash the car why can't we have one person doing that? All right. And he didn't have an answer. I was like, he didn't. So I said, all right. So I said, let's lay this out. So a person gets the car washed. They bring it back. Then the person goes out in the car, picks up the dry cleaning, comes back, and then the person goes out and gasses the car up. I said, is that using more gas or less gas? And it's just like these until you point out some of the simplicities to these individuals, because what you said is those vampires have dug so deep into those individuals that they have a heart. They feel bad letting those things go. And the one thing is, as you become more successful, all right, and I always say this, your mind has to be stronger than your feelings. Your mind has to be strong. It has to be stronger than your feelings. If your feelings are too strong, then you're never going to be able to elevate yourself to the point where you should be producing at, where you should be living at, where you should be achieving at. And then the people that have actually supported you, but been selfish for you along that path, those are the individuals that will come with you. And you have no problem putting energy inside of those individuals, because there are days that they energize you.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you have one of my favorite quotes ever from winning is about your heart, right? That it's not that you don't use your heart, you just use your heart less. And
winning doesn't make you heartless. It makes you use your heart less.
That quote stuck with me from that. That was amazing.
And if you look at the documentaries, I mean, there's so many sports documentaries out there, ever since The Last Dance came out, Derek Jeter had his thing, Kobe's had his thing. The Dream Team thing is on now. Dwayne's had his. All these individuals are having them. And if you've seen as they've progressed throughout their careers, what do they do? Winning didn't make them heartless. They used their heart less during competition when it matters to win the most. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It's not, everyone knows how to compete. The individuals that know how to use their heart less win more often. The other individuals compete, but those individuals win more often.
And I'm glad you brought up the Redeem Team documentary. I don't know if you've seen it yet. I watched it last night, and there's a moment in there where Kobe and LeBron are being interviewed, and Kobe says, if I'm out in public and I see someone in a Celtics jersey, I want to kill them. And LeBron gives Kobe this look like he's the craziest person on the planet. Can you tell me in that moment, what do you think that moment says about Kobe as a champion and as an athlete? Because that's not something a normal person would say, right?
Right. Well, there's nothing normal about winning. There's
Yes.
absolutely nothing normal about winning. So here's a difference. And I argue this point all the time. And everyone talks about the switch. Everyone talks about the switch, turn the switch on, turn the switch off. When you hear Kobe say something like that, there is no switch. It's a dimmer. It never because a person can turn that thing off and say, okay, you know what? I see somebody in the Celtic jersey, okay, the switch is off. I'm good with it. But when that switch never turns off and it's just a dim, that's who you are. That's who you are. I've seen individuals that come there and be like, listen, can I have your autograph? And they'll be in the wrong jersey, and they'll tell the individual, come back in a different jersey and I'll sign it. And like the kid will look at him and the kid will run up and get a different jersey and come back down and be like, and the person will sign it. There is no switch. It's a dim. It's because it takes too much energy to turn the switch on and off. It takes too much. It takes too, like during the summer or during the winter, is it more efficient to actually turn your heat on or off, or turn the air conditioning on or off? No, you set it at a temperature. When it hits that temperature, the switch dims off a little bit. When it gets below that temperature, it comes back on. If you turn it off altogether and it's the winter time and the temperature drops to 59 degrees in your house, and then you decide to turn the heat back on, it's going to take so much energy to get back up to that level. That's why I'm not a person that believes in the on and off switch. It takes too much energy to do that. Get the dimmer.
Love that. Now, as someone that grew up in Chicago in the 90s, listened to I Want to Be Like Mike on my Walkman and shooting hoops in my driveway, I have to ask you, what is your best Michael Jordan story about training him? Is there a story that you have that's just like sort of shows that insight of who Michael really is? I know you talked a lot about it in your book, but
well, every time he worked out, he made me work out with. Whether it was the only thing we didn't do was basketball shooting, because I would slow him down. I would do the rebounding. I would do the rebounding because it wasn't much of a benefit. But the conditioning drills, the weight drills, the ice tubs, you name it, he did it. He said, I'm not going to use the language on it, but he said, hey, if I got to do it, you got to do it. And it was a way for him to compete. It was like, all right, I need to compete with an individual. I need to see the other individual. I need to make sure that other individual is just as engaged as I am. Obviously, was I able to do the same things that he was able to do? Absolutely not. Did he surpass me in majority of the lips? Yes, he did. But it was a way for him to compete. And, there was many times that I'd get to the workout and he'd already be done. He would literally already be done because, the program for the next day was already laid out. It was sent to him. It was at the house just in case, if I was running late, car trouble, whatever it is. I wanted to make sure that he had all the information available to him. So from that standpoint, another great story was, I had to figure out how to incorporate golf into a thing. So literally every time we traveled on the road, Phil Jackson said, "Hey, MJ, you can't travel with your golf clubs anymore." So guess who got to carry the golf clubs? I did. So I, every time we were on the road, the first thing he jokingly, he didn't ask him like, "Hey, how was it traveling?" He goes, "Hey, did my golf clubs make it?" "Yes, your golf clubs made it." Because I know not to show up if they didn't.
That's hilarious. And I know you probably had a lot of like private personal conversations with MJ as well. We always saw like this MJ that just owned the game every time he was playing. Was there ever any behind the scenes moments where he showed doubt or fear, or where he just was unsure about what was going to happen?
No, you know what? He never doubted the more, he never doubted. What does he always say? That he goes, "Listen, I never lost a game. I just ran out of time." Because I never lost a game. I just ran out of time. But if you look up some of his old footage, he'll tell you, he goes, "Yeah, was I nervous before a big game?" He goes, "Yeah, I was nervous before a big game." So the same things that we all have, we've all had to face fear. We've all had doubt. We've all had doubt creep in. We've all been nervous. It's how you handle those situations. And how often do you let those things get a vote? Does doubt get a consistent vote in your mind? Does it literally on a daily basis? Does doubt win? What does fear do to you? Does it propel you, or does it freeze you? You know, what does that do? Nervousness. What triggers do you have to calm the voice that's causing the nervousness over and over and again? And those are things that, you know, you can mentally build. There are different triggers that you can use. There's different music that you can listen to. There's different things you can visualize. There's actual things that can look at, that can take you up one state into another. And those things are constantly evolving. Will they always be the same? You know, you can have a phrase that may work with you at a certain stage in your career, and then that gets you over doubt, that gets you over nervousness. But just as your mind evolves and your body evolves and winning evolves, those statements have to evolve. Every year with my athletes, when they win the championship, every time with my CEOs, they reach a certain level of success, you know, they always come to me and say, what's next? What adjustments, what changes do we have to make in order to make that adjustment? That's why you never see professional teams that come back with, you know, the same staff or the same players win multiple championships. Something has to change. Something has to change within the organizational structure. And there's also something that has to change within your organizational structure that's inside of you. It's funny. People love to control an organization structure that's outside of them. They, you know, the team that they built to surround them. Well, guess what? There's an organizational structure that's being built inside of you, that's constantly being changed, that's constantly being evolved, that needs to be adjusted, that certain thoughts and ideas have to leave, and new ones have to be added. Certain structures that need to be, just like you take care of your house, you take care of your foundation, you take care of your cars. What internal structures need to be tuned up? What internal structures need to be sold? What new ones have to be brought in? So that's how these individuals constantly deal with this stuff all the time.
I love that. And I know one of the things you talk about that leads to success for a lot of athletes and also downfall for a lot of others is the dark side. And I feel like this is the part that no one ever wants to talk about or even admit that they have. I think a lot of people, and me included, maybe are afraid to tap into it because I think there's a fear of it taking over. And there's a fear of not being able to control it.
Funny thing, I know you acknowledge your dark side because when you talked about it, you were smiling.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone knows what everyone has one. Everyone knows what it is. Everyone knows what triggers it. The hardest thing, the most difficult thing is that if you're going to unleash it, know when to unleash it, and know the key is, are you unleashing it? That way, if you're unleashing it, you have a better chance of controlling it. If somebody else forces you to unleash it, that means they have control of the situation. Most individuals use it that way, where they let somebody else unleash it for them, or let somebody else do something to them that triggers it. And now they've become control of that. They've become taking control of that situation. If you unleash it yourself and know that, hey, this is how much of it I need in this particular moment. And are you always going to be able to control it? No, you're not going to be able to control it. You know, and I'll bring up, I'm sure our viewers are so much younger, but everything you can relate to is you can find it on our web, on YouTube, whatever it may be, on Instagram. How many times did teams try to get Michael thrown out of the game?
Sure.
Because you're like, okay, are the Chicago Bulls better with Michael Jordan in the game or out of the game? So if we can get underneath, if we can create a trigger, if we can hit him a certain way, if we can have something, if we can get him to respond. There's footage of him rolling up his fist and getting ready to swing, and then having to stop. So that's your dark side, being able to, hey, they were trying to unleash it. They almost got it. I pull back. Now let me unleash it so I can go ahead and control it. First thing about the dark side is acknowledging and understanding. It's not a bad thing. It's not about vampires. It's not about Dracula. It's not about Star Wars. just think about the things. Think about when we were all in these situations. Think about the worst possible situation you have ever been in business, life, in your relationship, or whatever. What got you through it? What got you through it? All right. That's your dark side, because you were put into a dark place, and something got you through it in order to see the light, in order to see what was next. If you want to find out what it is, and in winning, we tell you, when we talk about, there's a dark side and the darker side. You want to find out what the darker side out is, and you want to know what your dark side is, read the book. We explain to you how to do it. Made it very simple for you.
Yeah. And I love your analogy on it of just finding what got you through it the first time. And, I think a lot of us just think about the negative aspect of it, or the negative part of the dark side instead of that. The two last questions for you. One will be a quick one. I want to talk to you about balance, because I know I've heard you say before that in winning, there isn't balance. And in my younger years, I went all in on work and personal development. If I'm being honest, it almost cost me a lot of relationships in my life because I was so focused on my career. And the positive was I saw extreme growth from it. But for me at the time, it wasn't worth that sacrifice to have to not have the balance in my life. So I know that many entrepreneurs like to move at light speed, but at the same time, the why is kids and family and our spouse. So any advice on how to continue winning without fully sacrificing the relationship side of things?
I always say, listen, this is the one thing about balance. You don't find balance, you create, and it's different for each individual. You don't find success, you create success. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't find happiness, you create happiness. Right? No one finds wealth, you create wealth. So what it is with balance, I just said the scales are never going to be equal the whole time. All right. So they're going to tip back, they're going to weigh up and down. They're going to go up and down. You get to decide how much you want. So what I always say is, like, listen, there's times where the scale could be balanced with work. All right. Then you can make that adjustment when you're with your kids and say, okay, the work goes down here, and now I'm with my family. I'm engaged with my kids. I'm engaged with my significant other. I'm engaged with whenever it may be. But you have to decide where the tipping scale is. Don't let somebody else decide that for you. Is there going to be a cost? Yes, there is going to be a cost. But the biggest cost is when the scales are perfectly balanced. That's when the biggest cost is. Because here's what people have to understand. All right. What's the number on a perfectly balanced scale? It's a zero.
Zero. Yep.
It's a zero. So if you're constantly shooting for that balance of equal among everything all the time, you may be good at a lot of things, but you're never going to be joyful. You're never going to be able to celebrate. You're never going to have that euphoria of when the scales are tipping all the time. And that's your challenge. That keeps you going. That's one of the things that gets you out of bed to know, hey, listen, the scales are never going to be equally balanced. But you know what? Today I need more joy with my family. So this is where. So the challenges, for high achievers like yourself, is like, all right, here's my challenge today. I literally gotta not focus in on work. I literally not have to focus in on work. And then there's other times where, like, you have an intense situation at work, and you have your daughter's or son's recital or something, something going on there. And it's just like, all right, well, where's it going to, what's important to me at that moment? And don't feel guilty if you're like, you know what? I have to get this thing done at work. I have to, because if you go to that recital, you're not actually going to be at that recital. Now, if you just miss it just because you missed it, that's it. I got a completely different word for you there.
Sure.
Yeah. But if there's times there where it's just, are you going to be able, it's not about just being present. It's about being in the moment. And you have to know, can actually be, if you tilt that scale towards that direction, are you actually in the moment? Are you actually able Are you actually able to enjoy it, or are you just there because of somebody else's guilt that pushed you into that situation? I've not. And this is to an extreme. But I'm trying to think of there was a Hall of Fame coach, and I'm drawing a blank on his name for the Dallas Cowboys. And he was getting accepted into the Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame. Jimmy Johnson.
Yes.
Jimmy Johnson. And Jimmy Johnson said, he had both of his sons in the audience, and he apologized to both of them. He said, I never attended any of their football games. Not one. And you could just see how emotional it was for him at that point. But to him, in order to achieve that level of success that he wanted to do, he said that's going to the ultimate extreme.
Sure.
All right. But I've not met one successful individual, business, and I'm not just talking about success from a financial standpoint, your definition of success, that hasn't had to miss an event of a significant other, of a child, of a family member, or so forth. It happens. It does happen. Right? I talk about something that's very unique and dear to me in the book Winning, about what my daughter did.
Sure.
The thing that we had. There's stories. You see it with MJ. You see it with Kobe. You see it with Kobe, with Wade. You see it with different CEOs. You see it with all high achievers. You know what? You got a situation going on right now with that. One of the most prolific winning quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
So they go through the same struggles that individuals do, but it's just magnified more. It's just magnified more to them. Listen, the price of winning it's extremely high. One of the things that, what we say says winning will cost you everything, but reward you with so much more. But it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you a lot.
The chapter in Winning, when you talked about your daughter, is actually my favorite chapter in the book. And it was the first time that my internal dialogue was actually explained better than I could explain it. And I gave the book to my wife, and I said, I only want you to read one chapter. I want you to read this chapter because it will get you to understand what goes through my head on a daily basis. And it just spoke to my heart. So I appreciate you sharing that story, because I know it wasn't easy to share.
And, Adam, you brought up a great point. So with individuals that are, I hate to use the word wired, because, we weren't wired this way at birth. Something happened. Like I said in the earlier podcast, something happened to us, and the way we handled the situation made us this way. All right. We weren't born wired to be these individuals. So what I've always said is, if you're in a relationship with an individual that thinks this way, that acts this way, and they've read the books, give the book to your significant other.
Yes.
So they can have a better understanding of you, of why you do things, why you act a certain way, why you handle situations, why certain situations make you very emotional, and others you're just a total blank to. It gives the other individuals to say, hey, it's a better understand. When we wrote Winning, and when Sherry and I wrote Winning and Relentless, one of the big things that people kept saying, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one. And then, we get that over and over again. Thank you for putting a name to this. Thank you for understanding and putting words to this, because those are the individuals I deal with on a consistent basis.
Yeah, it was like, I felt like I was almost having a personal conversation with you while I was reading the book, because I was like, man, this is what happens in my head that I can't explain to other people when they ask why I act certain ways. Yep.
Yeah, you can explain. Here's the thing: for other individuals, you don't have to explain. They already yes. understand. Like, oh yeah, I get it. When they make a decision, they're like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, they don't judge you for it. They're like, yeah, I had to do the same thing. I get it. And you move on to the next conversation.
I think some people too just will never understand what it takes to get to a certain level, no matter how much you try and explain it. And with those people, it's just like, it's okay that you don't understand. You don't need to.
You don't need to. And it's not for everyone. It is not for, but we don't judge you for not being that individual. Don't judge us for being that individual.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. I'm usually a pretty even-keeled guy, good with emotional intelligence, but there's one topic that I get furious with, and that's the Michael Jordan versus LeBron James debate of who the greatest of all time is.
What debate? What debate?
So I just need you to tell the people.
Hold on. I'm going to actually pull up something from my phone right now. So
Yes.
one second here. Give me 1 second here. All right. All right. Here we go. I'm going to read this. All right. Michael Jordan is the only player in NBA history to win an MVP, a scoring title, first team all defensive team, an NBA championship, and an NBA and a finals MVP in the same season. Hold on now.
And
he did it 4 times.
Yes. Thank you. Now, what do you say to the people that are like, oh, the players weren't as athletic back then, or they weren't as good?
Go watch YouTube and see what happened. See what happened. All right, you talk about athleticism, you talk about physicality and all that other stuff. Go watch some old clips of YouTube and see how athletic and how physical that actual game was.
Yeah, no flopping either.
Listen, I have LeBron is an excellent player. All the accolades that he's earned, he deserves.
Agreed.
A longevity standpoint, there's no doubt. I've been fortunate enough to be able to see the differences in both of them, similarities and the differences. Would you want to start a team? Would you be blessed to have a team with both of them? Absolutely. You know, this generation, they got a chance to, to grow with LeBron and see his maturity and how he's overcome adversity. I've seen the levels at both games, and I'm not one of those guys that says, "Hey, listen, get off my lawn, get off my lawn, guy." But I've seen everybody. Remember, MJ took almost 2 years off and still holds all those records. So imagine, put 2 more years of him playing. Where would his numbers be? Where would his numbers
have 8
be?
rings.
Yeah, exactly. No. Well,
thank you for settling that once and for all. I have a few people I'm going to send the last part of this podcast to. But I appreciate you taking the time. I'm so excited to have you as our keynote speaker at the Relentless Summit this year. And I know we have a ton of people that are coming just because they want to see you. And we've sent your book out to a majority of our clients. So I know a lot of them read that and then messaged us and were like, this is the best book I've ever read in my life. And we can't wait to see Tim speak. So looking forward to it. And thank you again for taking the time out.
No problem. Adam, I have one promise for you guys. I won't, when I'm at the event, I won't deliver. I'll over deliver.
Yes, I know you will. That's why we booked you. Thanks so much, Tim. I appreciate it.
Take care, my friend. Looking forward to this.